Serious, parents of Reddit who decided to cut contact with your children. What's the story? Cheap and easy to obtain H was the beginning of the end. Twice he robbed me of all my possessions, even my car. One 8-month stint in state jail during which I visited with his daughter every weekend, and upon release I brought him home only to be robbed again. 3 failed attempts in recovery centers, after which he and his girlfriend abandoned their children, leaving them with me for 4 years with no contact of any kind. At 32 he is now unable to remain out of the county jails for more than a week at a time. I'm done. I'll try to keep this short because diving into all of what has happened that led to us cutting contact would be a novel. When I married my husband, he already had 2 older children that lived with their mother. My husband and I ended up having 2 kids of our own. While my oldest was an infant, my stepchildren moved in with us, and that's when everything started. They caused so many problems for us. I'm talking heavy drugs, sneaking out and getting arrested, you name it. The older of the 2 called CPS twice and made up lies about me being abusive. As a new mom, the investigations were terrifying, but in the end they found their claims to be false. The final straw of them living with us was when we got wind of them peeing off the wrong crowd and the possibility of our home getting shot up. Their dad sent them to live with their mother. I'm just going to jump to when the actual cutoff happened, but keep in mind we had an endless amount of horrible incidents with them over the years, and we tried to help them countless times. They were both in their 20s at this point. Essentially, we discovered they were stealing from my side of the family. They robbed my sister of her fine jewelry and took what we totaled to be around $25,000 from 3 family members. Beyond that, they had a drug operation going on in a family member's summer cottage. The family member didn't know they were even there, as he lived elsewhere most of the time. When confronted by their dad, they blew up. They said some of the most hateful things I've ever heard and spit in his face. That was it for us. They took advantage of people that loved them very much and had no remorse for it. My 33-year-old daughter chose drugs and thug life over her husband and 2 boys. Hasn't seen her boys in 4 years. They're only 7 and 5. The oldest remembers her, the youngest does not. I've been dealing with her darkness since she was in 4th grade. Took her to countless therapists in her youth. She convinced them all she was fine. I tried to help her through probation and rehab again last year in the hopes of reuniting her with her boys. She was snorting. Now she's shooting. Nothing legal to keep her from these boys. She chose drugs. I'm done. Never realized what an epidemic this has become until I started talking to people who are dealing with the same thing with loved ones. It's definitely effed up. My stepson is a mess. My husband and his ex-wife divorced when SS was 18 months old, and mom had done whatever she could to cut dad completely out of his life until SS was 8, when she showed up at our door with SS in tow and his bags. She said she couldn't handle him anymore. All he would do was fight with his siblings. So if we didn't take him, then she was going to take him to the children's home. Of course my husband was excited to finally spend time with his son, and he would get to bond with his little half-brother who was 4 at the time and stepsister who was 10. It became apparent very quickly that he had been fed lie after lie about his dad. He would gleefully share very detailed stories about the abuse that he remembered that he and his mom suffered at the hands of my husband. SS was in therapy, but really started escalating dangerous behaviors. My daughter would wake up in the middle of the night with him standing over her saying, "Next time you'll never wake up." So we put a lock on her door, which he broke through with ease. We put a deadbolt on her door. He broke the door frame trying to get to her. His little brother would walk by and he would kick him as hard as he could. He bit him until he would draw blood. The last straw for me was when he barricaded himself in his room with his little brother. I could hear my son screaming when I finally got in. My SS was groping him. That for me was the last straw. He needed more help than what his therapist or we could do for him. The next day child services was contacted and he was removed from our home. A few weeks later CPS gave us pages and pages of psychological evaluations that his mom had on him. Pages of her blaming dad for each of his issues. Lies that he had beat and groped him, although there were statements from doctors that had clearly outlined that mom and her family had some seriously undiagnosed mental issues. There was so much information that would have been helpful before he came to live with us. I would never tell my husband that he cannot see his son, but his son is never allowed around my children. I made that promise to them both, and I hate that my husband is in the middle, but for our safety I've cut off any contact with my stepson. So I had my son early, around 17. The girl I had him with moved away before I met him. 5 years later I get sued for child support, so I paid and decided to try to take some care of this child. Fast forward to him in high school. I never got to spend more than the summers with him due to him living so far away and the fact that his mom is a bee. Anyway, I find out that he hasn't been to school in literally years, so much so that by almost 20, he hadn't graduated grade 9. Things go wrong in my life. 2. My ex-wife decides to leave me for some woman, and my son shows up at my doorstep saying that his mom kicked him out. I told him that he had to go to school if he's going to live with me. He finally agrees and I start finding out how terrible his mom did for him in school. He was labeled as severely learning disabled, schizophrenic, and was prescribed antipsychotics, which I'd never seen him take. It turns out he told his mom that he was seeing things, and after she took him to every doctor in the city, the first few couldn't find anything wrong with him. She finally got a few diagnoses. I took him to my doctors and find out that he was playing along so that the school would give him an easier time. I get the school to give him a chance and he finally starts honors English, math, etc. And, to everyone except me, surprise, he passes with high grades. So much so that he is accepted into college with a minimal of effort. Figuring he turned over a new leaf, I decide to buy him a car, put a couple of months rent down on his own apartment, and give him a couple $1,000s to help with tuition. Not to mention that I bought him a laptop, a bunch of dishes, pots and pans, etc. He looked so proud when he moved in, and I remember beaming all the way home after helping him move in the week before school starts. I see him for the next couple of weekends to ensure that he is transitioning to his new place well enough. Although he seemed a bit lonely at times, he seemed to be adjusting quite well. 2 weeks after school starts, I get a call from the school telling me that my refund was processed. I immediately call my son. Much to my surprise, his cell phone was cut off, even though I'm the one who pays for it. I go to his apartment to see if everything is okay, and the superintendent told me he moved out last week. I haven't heard from him since, but through the grapevine I found out that a friend of his won a legal battle and got a few $100,000, so they pooled their money to become big time drug dealers. I have no idea where he is now. I haven't heard from him. His mom hasn't. His grandparents haven't. Nobody has. My husband's oldest daughter is not part of our lives at this point. We basically discovered that everything she ever said was a lie. She got involved with a younger guy that's a real butthole. He's horrible to her and her daughters. She called the police on him, kicked him out, said she was never going to see him again. We made it clear that he would not be allowed around us or the other kids for any reason. She says she's pregnant. His dad blasts them on Facebook for being idiots, pointing out what an irresponsible mother she already is. She goes on a rant about how she pays her bills and takes care of her girls. The whole time, I'm thinking, B, I paid your gas so it wouldn't get shut off. I am apparently the only one attempting to feed your kids something other than marshmallows. And I'm the only one that ever expects them to behave. Not to mention the million times I've cleaned caked on dirt from their feet or necks because she won't bathe them properly. She had a miscarriage the next day, wanted some kind of sympathy, even though she had been hoping for a miscarriage until her bio mom convinced her that she needed another grandbaby. Anyway, a day or two later she asks for a ride. I ask who and where. She wants us to give abusive ex that has already moved back in with her a ride to the store. Frick no. Reminded her that we're not doing anything for him ever. Pointed out that it's pretty disrespectful of our wishes to try to force him on us. She threw a tantrum. He threw a tantrum. Told us get over it or don't speak to her and the grandbabies again. I told her I'm not having that abusive piece of crap around her siblings. She can either respect that or move on without us. She chose the abuser. We've ran into them driving around town a few times. The guy will literally hang out the window of the car screaming, making faces, and flipping us off every time. They act like they're still 12. I miss my grandchildren, but I don't miss their mother. I gave my son up for adoption at birth. I was broke, jobless, homeless, sort of. I had a room at the worst hotel in town, was about to kick his dad out, and even if I could find a job I had no one that would watch my then 18-month-old and a newborn while I worked. I know, a lot of y'all will rag on me for even being pregnant. We had a great apartment, a happy relationship, and great jobs when we decided to try for another baby. Things went south really fast and I couldn't think of anything else I could do for my kids than to give the baby to parents that could take care of him the way he deserved straight from the start and fight like heck to claw my way out of the hole I was in and give my other kid a better life too. So I did it. I gave him up to wonderful, amazing people. 6 weeks later I was cleared to work and miraculously got a job, saved for a year and moved myself, my toddler, and my kid's dad out of that godforsaken town. Years and years later I'm doing very well. I stuck to my promise that it would be worth it. Anyhow, I haven't talked to him. I got letters from his mom for a while, always with pictures, but not anymore. I never responded to them or wrote him. They had been burned in the past by birth moms shopping around and trying to sell their babies. And I've heard horror stories about adoptees contacting their birth parents and discovering they were utter crap and they were better off without knowing what happened to their birth parents. I was worried that me contacting them would complicate his life in ways he didn't need. They are wonderful people. I would rather live in pain, heartbreak, and uncertainty than intrude in their happiness. I want to know him more than anything in the world, but if he doesn't, I'll stay right here, away, quietly making good on my promise to him that it would be right and worth it and that I would never again be in that spot. He would be 15 now. Parental alienation. My husband walked away from his daughter because her mother did everything in her power to prevent or destroy any semblance of a father-daughter relationship. Lots of mind games, lying, passive-aggressive behavior and character assassination. Mom told everyone my husband physically abused her and daughter. We didn't have the money for a lawyer or family to lend money to us. We're on our own. Every single court-ordered visit was a battle with the mom and it was so hard on his little girl. In the end my husband felt it was best if daughter, 4 by then, was adopted by her stepfather as he seemed like a decent guy and figured he would be raising both mom and daughter, only for the mom to repeat the process with him 3 years and 2 more kids later. I can only imagine what sorts of lies the daughter has been told about her bio father. She's 15 now. Someday we hope to reconnect, away from her mother's influence. I'm the father in question. I have 3 kids, 2 daughters and 1 son. They're all adults. I got married at 20 and we had them one after another. For years, my wife and I blamed ourselves about how my youngest girl turned out, being so young, right out of community college. I wasn't making a lot, so I did the best I could. But we wonder if it was nutrition or the crap hole we stayed in or something that made her be born with severe BPD. We didn't know what it was at first. She was really difficult. We tried our best to raise her well. By the time we figured out what was wrong with her, she had set in really bad behaviors. We still think she's the one that mutilated the neighbor's cat but can't prove it. As of 2 years ago, she refused to take her medications, was sleeping around with whoever would shoot her up with drugs, stealing money, and generally being really difficult. We told her to leave and never come back. Tried to get her into a state mental place but it wasn't an option. So we just closed our doors and moved shortly after. Honestly don't know what happened to her since. I tell people I only have 2 kids. Wife is devastated, but I'm just relieved. Sorry, baby K. I had a daughter when I was fairly young. I married her mother and spent a few hellish years with her until divorce became necessary. We agreed to split custody so long as she received full physical custody. It made sense under 3 circumstances. Within a few years, it became obvious my emotionally volatile ex-wife was just poisoning our daughter with absurd lies and to some extent, no doubt, her family as well. My kid became distant and then anxious around me. Her mom began to move an awful lot and it, eventually, became undeniable that she was intentionally hiding from me. I tracked her down on Christmas 2013 at a house her father directed me towards. She was livid that I showed up to say Merry Christmas and drop off gifts for my daughter and her younger sister. My daughter looked at me like a complete stranger, even frightened. They were never home when I tried to visit after this and soon moved again. Realized no contact was available to me. Her mom called me months after and asked for a large sum of cash to pay for school stuff. It was April I think. I asked her where my daughter was before I agreed to anything and she got angry and hung up. I stopped trying I guess. My daughter refused to leave her second husband who would get drunk and try to kill her. Once when one of my granddaughters, who happened to be 6 months pregnant, tried to intervene. He knocked her to the floor. He picked up my daughter by her neck and slammed her head so hard against the wall it left a hole. Last time he pulled out a gun and pointed towards my other granddaughter who was trying to get my daughter away from him. He had already shot a hole in the tile in the master bathroom. He was also bullying my 15-year-old grandson on a daily basis. We now have custody of the kiddos, but every time the phone rings our anxiety hits the roof as we fear that will be the call to say my daughter is dead. I still love her but have done all I can. I don't love her. She doesn't love me and we have nothing in common. All names are changed. When I was 22 I met a beautiful woman who was in half my college classes but was a mature student. When Ella was 14 she'd given birth to a daughter Anna. By the time Ella and I moved in together Anna was already 15. It was like having a roommate. Anna was a great kid and all that jazz, but she wasn't interested in spending all that much time with some random man. Then 3 years later she moved out and I became the random ex-roommate who covers her tuition. People seem to think it's a tragedy, but we don't dislike each other, we're just not interested in contacting each other. We both love Ella and sometimes we happen to be spending time with her at the same time, like when Anna comes home for Christmas. When I married Ella I promised to take care of Anna. I don't regret that, but my care falls mostly on the financial side. Although I went to every game she had and every teacher conference, we just failed to bond. She's more like a distant cousin than a daughter. Wasn't me but my mom's brother, was the youngest of 5 children and there was one named let's go with Jake who was extremely abusive to my entire family. Twice he got one of my uncles in a headlock and choked him unconscious. The second time he would have killed him had my grandpa not saw it in time and kicked him off. Multiple times he attacked my grandpa, but being a veteran in the Korean War obviously he could handle it. Attacked my grandma with a pan once and that was the last straw and my grandpa kicked him out of the house. It's been 24 years since anybody has last seen him. It's weird because there wasn't any drugs at all. It was just some stuff going on in the head. My children ages 36 and 38 respectively refuse to grow up and still think sleeping on sleeping bags on a living room floor in friends' houses is neat. They came around to visit as long as I was feeding them, doing their laundry and giving them spending money, but refused to live with me because it meant getting a job. I finally cut the proverbial apron strings and said no more money. If you're hungry, I'll feed you. If you're sick, I'll get you medicine. If your clothes are dirty you can wash them here. If you need showers, you can take it here, but I will not give you any more spending money. I haven't seen them in 10 years. My parents, mum and stepdad, have cut off contact with my oldest stepsister, my age 32, because she recently stole $16,000 off my mum and essentially refused to pay it back. She dragged it on and on for months and mentally exhausted my mum. She's the biggest piece of scum crap I've ever met. Her kids won't have their grandparents now. She's only fricked herself over. Basically because of the mom. Met online years ago before it was well known how much you had to watch out for people online. She moved in with me, got pregnant and promptly broke up with me, moving back home with her mom in another state. When kid was born I brought up the subject of me raising them and the mom immediately threatened to cut off contact and take off so I'd never see my kid again if I tried. Years of intermittent contact, partly my own fault, and she contacts me again acting all nice saying she moved states for a job. I happened to be going to move anyways when she did and was in a position to, so we move in together so I can help her out and try have a proper relationship with my kid. What followed for me was a year of heck. Turned out she told my kid I was a devil worshipper and she would constantly try start fight in front her kids. I should mention she had a second kid right after having mine with some drug dealer who afterwards ended up going to jail. Mainly so she could crap talk me in front them. Something I wasn't willing to do to her back. She'd say all kinds insane crap, even at one point saying she didn't want to be their parent, then pretend she didn't say any of it if it was brought up in front someone else. She even told me she considered people worthless unless she could use them, and straight out told me she just used me to get pregnant. She would threaten the kids with punishment if they listened to me and told them not to tell me what they did during their day and basically taught them to lie. So it got to the point I couldn't even get them to go outside unless she gave prior permission to them, and I couldn't even ask how their day was even when I was the one taking care of them and the only adult there. Finally ended up moving out back to my home state, and when I tried contacting them to give my new phone number and info, their phone is turned off even though I had paid the bill for it days before moving, and tried contacting her online with no response. Basically, she made a habit of cutting off contact with her kids' fathers if she didn't get what she wanted. So between my own health issues and her lying, manipulating, and what she filled her kid's head with, there is no way for me to even try and have a relationship with my own kid. So in the end I pay a lot of child support to her, and all I know is they moved back to her home state, and my kid most likely thinks I'm this horrible person who abandoned them, was young and stupid and thought wanted to start a family, and ended up trying to with the worst person possible and ended up with nothing. Let's start with when she was 12. She was already a handful, but that was when she stole the babysitter's car and wrecked it into 3 other cars and a building. We ended up going bankrupt and moving to Utah. Please note that it is easier to cage a feral child in Utah than it is in California. We moved back to California when she was 15. She and her friends stole heirlooms from us and medications. She made up lies about what a big dope dealer I was and how I abused her. Yeah, I might plead guilty to that if you will take her off my hands. Neither cops nor counselors enablers like to hear that one, especially when other professionals laugh at them and say, "Oh, he said that to you." Also, here, call SGT Jones. He has the folder. Basically, she has mental illness and likes to not take her meds, run wild, and party. Gloss over. Basically, she has made our lives a living heck. I had cancer about 4 years ago, and survivors last 3 to 8 years, on average. She was going through a non-medicated stage and had left her boyfriend and special needs toddler. I then made the comment, "How do you think he feels about his mother leaving?" and she went totally bat crap ballistic on me. I won't post most of what she said, but "You're sick old bastard and I hope you die a lonely painful death" was a defining moment for me. Life, considering, is too short to put up with such crap. It's been 25 years since she was 12 and I was old and tired and have had put up with enough. I will not acknowledge her, nor speak to her. Even though my wife is an enabler, she knows better than to go there. As far as I am concerned, my daughter disappeared at about 10 and was replaced by a monster. I've tried and given up. It weakens me too much to fight her mental demons and mine. 2. I hope she finds the help she needs, but don't bother calling me and telling me if she does. I'll most likely be dead. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.